What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It's What's on My Deck. This is September 2020 and we're talking largemouth. We're actually doing a Sam Rayburn edition because I'm just coming off of a fresh second place finish at the Bassmaster Central Open down on Sam Rayburn. And you know, I caught fish all throughout practice. It was a little grimy, it really was, despite taking second place. Went down there wanting to fish grass. You know, it's fall time, that grass should be real matted, should be good. And I did catch fish early that just wasn't getting quite the right size, but still, I was still catching good fish. And in the morning, you know, the water was getting lower, so the mats were real thick. Yet on the outside, we had a little bit of kind of some submerged grass. Not a whole lot of it, most of it was emerged, but at the same time, there's a decent little weed line there to flip and stuff like that. And I actually caught him good on a swim jig. And this is a 3/8 ounce Outkast tackle, a heavy cover swim jig with a 4-inch Biospawn Exo Swim on the back, all white, matches the shad. Fall time. You know, I don't throw a lot of white, but man, fall time when you're around shad, white's kind of the deal. I was using a 7.2 Shimano Expride medium heavy. This is one of my favorite rods. This is not the glass version. This is just the regular graphite version, the 7.2 medium heavy. I was using a Shimano Curado K. This is the HG, so a 7-speed. And I'm using 40, I believe this is 40-pound Power Pro SSV2 in the Onyx Black. And using that FG knot again, and I'm using about a 10-foot 20-pound Seaguar Invizx leader. This was awesome. Again, early in the mornings I could get some bites. I wasn't catching giant size, did catch one decent one, but at the same time I just wasn't quite finding that size. But the swim jig's always a staple for me. Another one I could pick up bites on, the old Whopper Plopper. This is the 130 size Whopper Plopper. Again, I'm using that same exact rod, that 7.2 medium heavy Shimano X-Bride. Same reel, except I'm using the XG. This is an 8-speed Shimano Curado K. I'm using 40-pound Power Pro SSV2, just straight SSV2 right to it. And again, this one I throw on the edge of the hay grass. I threw it around the dam, and definitely threw it on the edge of that grass. I could pick up bites for sure, but at the end of the day, I just was getting better bites out of the brush. And the other way I got some good bites was just straight up getting up in those mats and punching. And that's what I went there to do. That's what I wanted to do, one of my favorite things. Here I'm using a 711 GLX, G Loomis GLX. That's a medium heavy, but again, this is a FPR rod, a flipping rod, so it's a flipping medium heavy. I mean, it's a pretty good rod, but it does have a lot of tip to it. I really like it. I was running 65-pound Onyx Black Power Pro SSV2. I was using the Shimano Metanium. This is last year's version, or the previous version of the new Metanium that just came out. This is again 8-speed, same deal. I punch it in the mat. As soon as I get that bite, I want to hit them and I want to be able to get it out quick. So I'm going to use 8 speeds for so much of that kind of stuff. If I'm using the rod to impart the action, generally I'm going to be using the 8-speed. Unlike if I'm casting using the reel, then I might start going down to a 6 or 7-speed. Here I'm using a 1¼ ounce Woo Tungsten flipping weight. Right there, that's an owner jungle hook, a 4/0 owner jungle. That thing's a beast. It's awesome. And I was just using a Reaction Ovation Beaver and black light. Again, I got some bites, but I just wasn't consistent, and that's what was scaring me. I could even get good bites. There's a lot of ways to catch a 6-pounder on Sam Rayburn right now, and that flipping and punching is definitely one of them. I just never found the right areas that kind of gave me the good feeling inside. Instead, on the second day of practice or whatever, I started idling around using my Lowrance electronics. I mean, they really should be a huge key part to what's on my deck right now, because they were instrumental in both finding the right brush that was holding the fish and then catching them up front. My Navionics mapping again should be on this. They're as important as all my equipment, or even more important. You know, that new relief shading was great. I could see those drains, so important on Sam Rayburn. I could really see those drains, follow them in, and find that right brush where those fish with the dropping water were coming to me. So let's get down to it. First thing I would use, I usually had a rotation on all the brush. I ended up finding 50-something brush piles that I fished, and I ran them with a rotation. I'd either start with a crankbait or a swim bait, and the crankbait I was using was a DT14. I actually went between like a shaddy pattern or this one right here, which I think is like a herring color. Both were equally as good. I get hung in the brush every now and then, just something, the treble hooks, you know, coming through. I tend to lose them a little bit more in practice, but at the same time I could find the brush with that. I try to get about 100 feet back and make super long casts. And I'm using literally my favorite cranking rod for all this, and it's a Loomis IMX Pro. It's the 906 crankbait rod, but it's literally, it's 7.6, and it's like a heavy action, again, a cranking heavy action, but this can handle all your 6XDs, your Deep 6 from Megabass, your Rapid DT series heavy stuff. Really good. Using the Shimano Curado K. Again, you can tell I like that reel a lot, and I'm using it in just the regular G. This is just a 6-speed gear ratio, perfect for the deep crankbait, and I was throwing 12-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon. Again, this one found me more fish in practice than actually resulted in the tournament, but at the same time, this thing was instrumental. And matter of fact, a couple of my best spots, I thought I was going to really catch them on. I tore them up in practice on these DTs. So awesome setup. Again, that IMX Pro is the gem of the bunch when it comes to the cranking series. Love that rod. Next up, this is a Megabass swim jig. This is the 3/4 ounce version. It's got a nice little flashy deal on the bottom, little blade. But what I liked about it is it had a weed guard. It has a big old hook on it. 3/4 ounces. I could keep it down, and it came through the brush. It was amazing coming through the brush, actually. I put a 5.8 Kitech swing impact fat on there, just a big old swim bait through it. And again, most of the time I was generally expecting to catch these fish on a worm or a drop shot, and ended up catching some big ones there on that last day on the swim bait itself or the crankbait. But a lot of times what I would do is make a super long cast, try to stay way back off the brush, and this is what I would throw at them. At the same time, I'm using a Shimano Expride. This is a 7.7 heavy. Best swim bait rod out there. I think Alex Davis helped design this rod. I use this thing for all my paddle tail swim baits. It's perfect. And again, I was using another Shimano Curado K, 200 HG. That's the 7 series, and straight 17-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon. Again, a lot of the times what I was doing is using those baits, the crankbait and the swim bait, to find the brush from about 100 feet away. I'd get up close to it, start firing big casts at it, feel where the brush was, and I wasn't always expecting to get the bite that way. I was mostly just trying to line up so I could get on it and throw the worm at it, or the football jig, and that's next. This is a brand new Outkast tackle prototype. This is a 5/8 ounce. This is their new football jig they got releasing. I was just using a Strike King Rage Crawl. I just like the color on the back when I'm at Rayburn. I'm using the 7.3 Carolina rig rod, medium heavy. Awesome structure rod. I've talked about this one before. It's good for football jigs, Carolina rigs, biffle heads, anything offshore that you're dragging. Again, we're right back at a Shimano Curado K. It's a 200 HG, 7-speed, and straight 17 or 15-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon. The football jig, a lot of times I won't actually get the bite in the brush, but I get the bite right next to the brush if I made a real long cast with it. As I started to approach the brush, I went to these two rods right here. My first, as I got within about 60 feet, and I'd use Lowrance live sight to actually see the brush, and then I could see the activity. I could see if there was a largemouth on it, and then I'd kind of really dig down if I felt like there was largemouths on the pile. And I was just throwing a worm. You know, you can't go to Sam Rayburn without throwing a big worm. This is the Biospawn Exo Ribbon and Redbug, 10-inch version. It's awesome, especially for a place like that. Mega rib body, moves a lot, disperses a lot of water. I was using a 1/2 ounce Tungsten weight and just a 5/0 owner round bend hook. Pretty standard stuff. At the same time, I was also using, this is a 7.5 Loomis NRX heavy action rod. I believe the actual numbers on it, the NRX 894 jig worm rod, straight 17-pound fluorocarbon, and I was using a Shimano Metanium. Again, this is an 8-speed, something that when I get the bite, I could hit them and just get them. The key is getting them out of the brush. But the key in practice was I actually idled for like 2 hours, marked probably, I don't even know, 15 brush piles, something like that. Went back to the very first one and started to fish them. My very first cast, I caught a 7-pounder on this bait, this setup right here, and I don't think I ever made another cast at a brush pile again. I just idled for 2.5 days. I idled and marked them. Like I said, I had 50-something of them, and I just rotate through the baits. Last but not least, the drop shot. This was a killer bait for me. It probably caught 50% of my bass there. I know a lot of guys down in Texas don't want nothing to do with the spinning rod, and I get it. I lost some giants in that tournament, ones that definitely could have won it for me. At the same time, I also landed a bunch that got me into that position to almost win the tournament in the first place. And I was throwing my favorite rod. This is the 7.3 medium, the NRX 872S spinning rod, Shimano Accents 4000, 10-pound Power Pro SSV2 to a 12-pound Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon leader. I was using a 3/8 ounce Tungsten barrel weight, 1/0 owner cover shot hook, and just a simple robo worm and morning dawn. I lost like a 4 or 5 pounder both first day, second day on this bait. Also caught a 5.5 pounder day one. I literally caught 50% of my bass on this, probably 25% on the worm, and the rest of them mixed between the crankbait, football jig, and swim bait. But this thing was huge for me. At the same time, I also, you know, you're bringing a knife to a gunfight, so I definitely lost some in the tournament that could have done something special, but at the same time, it was my last resort. I get within 40 feet of the brush pile and start really picking it apart. Try to get over the top of it. You had better luck in getting them out, but at the end of the day, you can't leave without trying to get that bite. So that was my setup. That's what I'm running right now. Basically everywhere I go when it comes to largemouth fishing, especially in this part of the country, Sam Rayburn, I'm going to want to fish grass, and I'm going to want to be offshore. Stuff like that is just where the fish are, and that's what's going on. So that's my one for this one. It's a September largemouth one. Probably bring you a spotted bass one, and then October we're going to get back into largies and my favorite smallmouth. We're talking about my favorite time of year. We'll be back on Mille Lacs throwing big stuff for big smallies, so definitely tune in. But please subscribe to my channel, Josh Douglas Fishing. Share this stuff with your friends. Y'all, I'm really not hiding nothing from you. I'm bringing you the real deal, what's on my deck, and I'm going to keep doing it. Tight lines.